In the previous lesson, we have learned about the plans or the approaches that we could use in order for us to achieve these research proposal. And now we will try to write our research proposal. As we have known already, we have provided you the list of activities that has something to do with the writing of your research proposal, from the introduction up until the methodology that you could use for your research proposal. So I have advised you to conduct a descriptive research, or possibly you would be using statistics, which has something to do with the percentage and mean or averaging, as well as percentage frequency. Okay, so you could use these statistical tools in order for you to interpret the data that you will be gathering. Okay. So for today's learning outcomes, we have number one, we have to describe the 3 general characteristics of a good research proposal. And of course, the strategies that we can use in order for us to create the first draft of your proposal. Although you have submitted it already, we will be revisiting it or your output. So in order for us to acknowledge some of the improvements that we can do for your research proposal. We also have number 2, identify the strategies for effectively revising and strengthening your first draft of a proposal. So for the next slides that we will be showing you, we will be providing some knowledge and guidelines on how to revisit or to improve your writing skills, as well as the write-ups that you have for your research proposal. And last, we have described the common weaknesses in research proposal. Ito, yung sinasabi natin na madalas na pagkakamali ng mga estudyante o kaya ng mga proponent or writers with their research proposal. Ano itong mga pagkakamali na ito? We will be having some glimpse of that issues. Okay? So ano bang ibig sabihin ng research proposal? Again, the proposal lays out the problem for research. So possibly you can describe exactly how the research will be conducted. So ang ibig sabihin nito, you will be knowledgeable about the methodologies or statistical tools that you can use in order for you to interpret your data. So let's say, for example, you have data gathered. Okay? So pwede mong i-describe yung data na yan sa pamamagitan ng frequency, percentage, mean, median, mode, or central tendencies, as well as other statistical tools. So pwede rin kayong gumamit ng standard deviation o kaya naman other tools of knowing the interpretation of these numbers. Okay? So outlines the precise and detailed resources researcher will use to achieve the desired result. So let's say, for example, again, you want to compare 2 variables and to know their relationship to one another, or you may want to compare the difference between the pre-test and the post-test. So possibly, you can use different statistical tool for that. Kapag ka-relationship, again, we have correlation. Kapag ka-difference naman, you might include the experimental studies that you might propose. So a proposal is essential to a successful research as a building contractor's plan. So gaya rin ng discussion natin noon, kapag kayo ay magpo-propose ng study, gaya lang din yan na pagpo-propose sa isang contractor o sa isang engineer, halimbawa, meron siyang plano, meron siyang proposal. Ano po ba yung gagamitin natin? Ano ba yung mga tools? Ano ba yung mga kasangkapan na pwedeng gamitin ng isang contractor in order for him to achieve the goal that he wants? Okay? Halimbawa, yun nga, bubusa siya ng bahay. So gaya ng mga researcher, you would want to have an output or research output just like these contractors. So before collecting data, bago pa man kayo magpa-survey o bago pa man kumuha ng mga datos mula sa inyong mga respondents, importante pagplanuhan muna natin. Importante, tingnan muna natin kung ano yung survey form na ibibigay natin sa kanila. Ano yung mga datos na gusto nating makuha sa kanila. Importante ba na makuha natin kung ano ang edad nila. So your assumption or possibly your hypothesis has something to do with the age as well as the factors involved. So possibly you can correlate the age to the factors existing to your questionnaire. Pwede naman yun. O kaya naman, meron bang significance yung relationship ng lugar kung saan sila naroroon when it comes to the emotionality or other psychological factors that you want to measure. Okay? So even after all these decisions have been made, further planning is necessary. So halimbawa, nakapag-decide ka kung anong statistical tools yung gagamitin mo, kailangan mo pa rin pagplanuhan. Paano mo kukunin yung mga datos na gusto mo kunin. Okay? So it is included in your research proposal. As you embark on the task of writing a research proposal, you should understand exactly what characteristics a proposal should have. And now, this is what we will be discussing. Ano ba ang mga characteristics ng isang research proposal? Okay, number one, a proposal is straightforward document. Hindi ka na magpapaligoy-ligoy pa, no? Diretso agad. Hindi ka mag-ilalagay dito ng mga datos o kaya naman mga references na wala namang kinalaman sa datos o kaya naman sa study na ginagawa mo. Okay? Mamaya pag-aaralan pa natin further. A proposal is not a literary production. Hindi kayo tutula dito. Hindi kayo gagawa ng creativity work dito sa research proposal na to. And of course, a proposal is clearly organized. Okay? Pag sinabi natin clearly organized, kapag ka nakita ang papel ninyo, importante na mapukaw yung atensyon. Ano ba ang gusto ninyong palabasin? Ano ba ang gusto ninyong makuha sa research ninyo? Okay? So a proposal is straightforward document. So as we have said a while ago, a proposal should be not cluttered. Ibig sabihin, hindi ito makalat with extraneous and irrelevant material. So whatever does not contribute directly to the delineation of the problem and its solution must be omitted o dapat ninyong tanggalin kapag hindi naman nakakatulong o tingin ninyo hindi naman importante sa research ninyo. Halimbawa, ang topic ninyo ay tungkol sa mga estudyante. Okay, yung emotionality of the students. Hindi kayo maglalagay doon ng mga literature na patungkol sa mga magulang, emotionality ng mga magulang. Just focus with the emotionality of the students or the target respondents. O kaya naman, hindi kayo maglalagay doon ng emotionality ng mga teacher. Okay, just focus with the students' characteristics. Maliwanag ba yun? So, straightforward dapat ang inyong kinukuhang datos o mga references na ipoprovide ninyo. So this study will analyze the social and economic status of certain minority groups today in comparison with their similar status 5 decades ago for the purpose of. So pwedeng ganito yung estilo ng pag-introduce ninyo ng study ninyo. So you want to compare what are the past performances of the students, let's say for example, with your current respondents. So pwede naman yun. So halimbawa, meron kayong nakita na mga study related to your target respondent na mga estudyante. So pwede kayong kumuha ng mga datos from the past which is also related to this topic that you have. So pangalawa, a proposal is not a literary production. A proposal is not a creative production that strives to engage readers with complex. Okay? Hindi kayo magpapaligoy-ligoy dito. Okay? Characters, vivid imagery, and spellbinding plot. Kapag kayo ay nagbabasa halimbawa ng creative work, halimbawa sa mga nobela, o kaya naman sa mga story na binabasa ninyo sa Wattpad, o kaya naman sa anime manga. Sinong nagbabasa dito ng mga manga? O yung sa yung pinagkukunan ng mga anime movies. Ganyan. Sino naman dito nagbabasa halimbawa ng Wattpad? Di ba kapag nagsusulat yung writer doon, pinapaliwanag pa kung ano yung detalye ng sitwasyon o kaya naman you want to give emphasis on some irrelevant things na hindi naman dapat natin pagtuunan. So hindi gaya sa research proposal, kailangan direct to the point tayo doon. So the proposal provides a chance to show how clearly and completely the researcher can state a research problem. Kapag kayo ay nagbasa, wala na kayong panahon para idetalyado yung mga bagay na hindi makapagpukaw ng atensyon ng inyong mga reader. Kaya nga, nauso yung tinatawag natin na abstract. Doon sa abstract, mababasa na agad ng reader kung ano yung gusto ninyong makuha sa research ninyo. And of course, to explain how those data will be interpreted and brought to bear on the problem. Gaano ka-importante ang sitwasyon na ito with the problem that you are trying to solve. Okay? We also have a proposal is clearly organized from the phrase itself or from the sentence itself. No? Kailangan organisado. So a proposal has to be written in conventional prose style and thoughts are expressed in simple paragraph form. Okay? Madalas kasi sa mga researcher na estudyante, ang ginagawa nila, kinokopya tapos pinipaste lang nila dun sa document nila kung ano man yung nakuha nilang references, especially sa Wikipedia. Again, huwag kayong gagamit ng reference gamit ng Wikipedia. Ang gagamitin ninyo ay mga PDF format na mga studies or researches from the past. Okay? Preferably from 2016 up to present, 2016 hanggang 2021. Yan yung mga gagamitin ninyo ng mga references o yung mga study na may kinalaman sa target respondent ninyo. Kaya kayo ang pinapipili ko ng mga respondent ninyo. No? Kasi kayo ang makita ng mga related literature that is accessible sa paraan na ginagawa ninyo ngayon. Okay? So in professional writing, headings and subheadings are the single most commonly used strategy to express the writer's overall organizational scheme. Kapag kayo ay nagbabasa ng mga textbook, mapapansin niyo roon na merong mga heading at mga subheading kung paano ano yung ine-expect ninyo ng mga susunod na mga sentences or paragraph, ano yung mababasa ninyo sa susunod na mga chapter. Diba kapag nagbabasa kayo ng libro, meron doong table of content. Okay? Sa pagbabasa ninyo yung table of content, and then when you read every chapter, there is always a heading and there are subheadings na tinatawag. So let's say for example, you have your research proposal. Meron kayo doon naka-bold tapos naka-capitalize na sentences. No? Halimbawa, yung research objective o kaya naman relevant literature o yung natawag natin na RRL, Review of Related Literature. O kaya naman minsan yung proposed method or methodology na tinatawag or at the chapter 4 minsan sa implications for professional practice. Ito yung mga nakikita natin naka-bold, okay, na mga letters or mga phrases. So organizing and writing a research proposal, okay? Paano natin ino-organisa ang ating mga research proposal? Okay? So for quantitative study, okay, again, sino sa mga students natin yung nakakaalala, ano ang pagkakaiba ng quantitative at qualitative study? Sige nga, kung nakinig sila last meeting. Sige. Additional points ito para sa inyong recitation ngayong umaga. Kapag nasagot ninyo kung ano ang ibig sabihin ng anong pagkakaiba ng quantitative at qualitative data. Sige nga. Provide ninyo yung answer ninyo sa ating in-call message. Ano ang pagkakaiba ng quantitative at qualitative data? Sige, okay lang kahit may isang sumagot lang kayo ng kahit yung naalala ninyo, pagkakaalala ninyo, o pagkakaintindi ninyo sa quantitative versus qualitative data. So when you organize a quantitative data or quantitative study, you have to consider the problem and its setting. So this is possibly included in your chapter 1. So the problem in setting, meron kayong tinatawag na statement of the problem. Okay? Doon sa statement of the problem na yan, meron pang sub-problem yan. So let's say, for example, you would want to explore the demographic profile of your respondents. Ibig sabihin ng demographic profile, gusto mo malaman yung edad nila. Gusto mo malaman kung taga saan sila. Gusto mo malaman kung anong age group sila o kaya naman kung sila ba ay senior high school, sila ba ay college o yung educational attainment nila. Okay? So, halimbawa, importante din sa'yo kung anong blood type nila, kung anong horoscope nila. So, pwede mo namang ilagay din yun. So, ito yung tinatawag natin na demographic profile nila. So, meron din tayong tinatawag na mga factors involved with your, what we call this, your yung inyong questionnaire o yung survey form ninyo. Okay? So, pagka-factors involved, meron kayong life satisfaction halimbawa, there are several factors involved with that questionnaire. So, you would want to ask also, what are the levels of life satisfaction based on what these factors? Okay? So, meron din tayong hypothesis na tinatawag. Ito yung educated guess ninyo o yung hula ninyo. Meron kayang relationship, yung demographic profile given and your factors involved with the questionnaire. So, you would want to ask that. So, ito yung hypothesis ninyo. There is no significant relationship o yung tinatawag natin na null hypothesis. Ito yung hula ninyo. There is no significant relationship. Ngayon, gusto mo ipagwalang bisa o gawing null itong hypothesis nito. Patutunayan mo na meron talagang relasyon kasi ito yung assumption mo. Merong relasyon yung demographic profile at yung kanilang emotionality halimbawa. Okay? So this is your hypothesis. Yung definition of terms naman. Okay? Ano ang ibig sabihin mo sa salita na ito? Okay? So all throughout your research, ito ang ibig mong sabihin sa terminology na ito. Hindi ka pwedeng malito kung anong ibig sabihin ng salita na to. Okay? So yun tinatawag natin na definition of terms. Meron na tayong tinatawag na operational definition minsan. So assumptions. And also the limitations and of course, importance of the study. Sino ang makikinabang ng resulta ng ng study mo? Yung mga estudyante ba? Yung mga respondent ba? Yung future researchers ba? Yung school ba? Yan. So ito yung sinasagot natin sa importance of the study. Okay. Pangalawa, meron tayong review of related literature. Okay, ito yung madalas natin nakikita sa chapter 2 ng study ninyo. Pangatlo, data and the treatment of the data. Okay? So sa treatment of data, of course, you have to be knowledgeable of the statistical tools that you will be using. So letter A, the data needed and the means for obtaining the data. Paano mo kukunin yung mga datos mo? Are you going to use Google Form? Are you going to use online platform? And what platform are you going to use in order for you to gather this data that you have? Kailangan mo ba ng permission? Kailangan mo bang magsulat ng letter? Okay? So every time that you will be gathering data coming from your respondents, it is important to create a communication letter to the target respondents or directly to the administration of that school or that organization. Hindi pwede magpapasurvey kayo, bahala na kung sino sasagot. Hindi pwedeng ganon. Gagawa muna kayo ng letter to give permission, para bigyan kayo ng permission na mag-conduct ng inyong letter, ng inyong study. Okay? So of course, we have this the research methodology. And of course, we have a specific treatment, yung treatment natin for sub-problem, number 1. Now that you have gathered all of the demographic profile, how are you going to treat them? Halimbawa, gagamit kayo ng statistical tool ng descriptive statistics. Frequency ba gagamitin mo? Mean, median, mode, o central tendencies? Ano pang ginagamit natin? Percentage ba yung gagamitin natin? O kaya naman, meron kang another sub-problem. You won't want to know the correlation or relationship between two variables yan. So gagamit kayo ngayon ng Pearson R. O kaya naman gusto mong malaman kung reliable ba yung data mo. Okay, Cronbach's alpha naman yung gagamitin mo, halimbawa. O kaya naman, magkakaroon ka ng analysis of variance. So, pagkukumparahin mo yung tatlong grupo. Ayan. So, gagamit ka ngayon ng analysis of variance. O kaya naman, gusto mong malaman yung performance ng Group A at Group B. So, t-test naman ang gagamitin natin doon. Okay? So, sa problem number 2, so you are asked to determine ano yung treatment doon sa data mo. Hindi pwedeng mag-ngolekta ka lang ng datos tapos hindi mo i-treat ito, hindi mo i-interpret yung mga data na yan. So pangatlo, additional sub-problems are discussed in the same manner. Okay, so for the part 4, we have qualifications of the researcher and any assistants. Dito ninyo i-attach yung tinatawag natin na inyong CV. Yung madalas natin na alam yung resume. Pero yung CV, it includes all of your information, ano yung qualification ninyo, andyan yung pangalan ninyo, anong school ninyo, ano yung program ninyo, halimbawa, UMS, ganyan. Tapos sino yung mga references ninyo. Okay. We also have qualifications of the researcher and any assistant, outline of the proposed study, so steps to be taken, and of course, your timeline. Gaano katagal para ikaw ay makakolekta ng datos? Gaano katagal para ikaw ay makapag-interpret ng datos mo? At gaano katagal para ma-present mo yung study mo? Okay? So references, maliwanag, na gagamitin natin ay APA, style of citation. So take note of this, APA style of citation ang gagamitin ninyo kapag kayo ay kukuha ng mga references. And of course, we have appendices or yan. These are all the attachments are going to sa appendices ninyo. Now that we are done with the quantitative study sample format, we will now proceed with the qualitative one. So for the qualitative, so you are not required to have this format naman since we are using quantitative data. So for the qualitative data, we have the introduction, of course, you have the purpose of the study, general background for the study, guiding questions, as well as the limitations and significance of the study. In contrast with the quantitative data, diretso agad ito ng methodology. Okay? So method agad. So sa methodology ninyo, nandiyan yung theoretical framework ninyo, type of design and underlying assumptions, role of researcher or including qualifications and assumptions, and of course, selection and description of the site and participants. Ito yung sinasabi natin minsan na research local. Data collection strategies, data analysis and strategies, methods of achieving validity. Yan. So magkaiba yung format nila kung mapapansin niyo. So pangatlo naman yung findings. Sa findings ng qualitative study, meron tayong relationship of your result to literature. Ano yung may aambag ng inyong research results to the literature, existing literature that we have in qualitative study. And of course, we have relationships to theory na ginamit ninyo, halimbawa. So relationship to practice, so actual contribution of your research results. And of course, management plan, timeline, as well as feasibility, references, hindi mawawala yan, and appendices. So lahat ng attachments mapupunta yan sa appendices. Especially the communications that you have, approval, pati yung checking of the grammar, yung certificate na binigay ng statistician, o kaya naman certification from statistician or grammarian. So even the grammarian, kailangan makakuha kayo ng certification from that. Pati yung sinasabi natin ng mga psychometrician o yung magbabalidate ng inyong mga tools kung kayo ay gagamit ng self-made tools. Okay? Now we also have arrangement of the materials, should be presented in such a manner that it forms for readers a clear, progressive presentation. So paulit-ulit tayo na dapat maliwanag kung ano ang gusto nating marating doon sa papel natin. So formatting headings, we use American style of APA or American Psychological Association's publication manual of 2010. So this is just an example of formatting headings and subheadings we have right here. So yung first level heading, siya yung nandito sa taas. Kumbaga sa chapters, so nakalagay dyan yung chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. Tapos nakalagay doon kung ano yung heading niya. Halimbawa, introduction o kaya naman review of related literature, ano pa, methodology, ano pa, yung inyong conclusion o yung ating yung ating mga bandang chapter 4 and chapter 5. So we also have second level heading. Yan, ayun yung mga approaches natin. Halimbawa, we also have third and fourth level headings as well as fifth heading. So ito naman yung practical application natin with writing a proposal. So in writing the first draft, you have to use word processing software. So likely you will use, ano yung mga ginagamit natin to write a proposal. Sige nga, magbigay kayo ng example ng ginagamit ninyo to write. Even your assignments, dito ninyo ginagawa. Sige, magbigay kayo ng example. Online man yan o kaya existing na application sa inyong computer. Magbigay kayo ng example. Word processing software. Microsoft Word, ano pa? Google Docs, ano pa? O yung iba gumagamit ng open source na word processing. Yung, kalimutan ko yung pangalan nun, pero it is commonly used by students. So it is free. It is downloadable sa ano ninyo, sa inyong tawag dito, sa inyong store. Yan, Google Play Store. Okay? So, gumagamit tayo ng word processing software, ayan, WPS, in order for us to edit all of the materials that we have. But I suggest that we are going to use Google Docs para standard lang tayo. So, number 2, adhere to any guidelines required by the institution, organization, and funding agency. So, let's say, for example, I have given you the format for the research proposal. Yun yung susundin ninyo. Pero halimbawa, mayroong binigay na format yung school. O kaya naman yung ang organization or funding agency sa inyo. So, babaguhin niyo yung format. So, this is the least problem of the researcher, yung format. Likely, the content nandyan na yan. So, methodology, target respondent, ano pa, statistical tool, okay? Yung inyong research local, lahat yan nandyan naman yan sa ano ninyo, content ninyo. But the least problem is that yung inyong format, likely you will just adapt to the format given to you. So when writing the first draft, focus more on organization and logical thought sequences than an exact wording or grammatical correctness, spelling, and nitty-gritty formatting details. So you can use Grammarly in order for you to edit your work. Familiar ba kayo sa Grammarly? Yan. So Grammarly, pwede niyo siyang i-download sa desktop niyo when you have the internet. No, pwede niyo siyang gawing extension to your Google Chrome. So every time that you will write a letter, every time that you're going to create some assignments, pwede ninyong gamitin itong Grammarly na to correct any misspelled words or any grammatical error. Yan. So ito yung pwede ninyong gamitin in order for you to have this good output. Tapos meron din naman tayong paraphrasing tools online. Ibig sabihin nito, para hindi kayo na coconote, na nangopya kayo, kaya naman kinapipaste ninyo yung trabaho ninyo, gumamit kayo ng Killbot. Okay? Makikita nyo yan, paraphrasing tool online. So every time that you will copy a paragraph or sentence coming from an excerpt coming from a research o kaya naman yung nabasa ninyo, wag ninyong kopyahin yung mismo word for word. Ang gawin ninyo is that kopyahin ninyo tapos i-cite ninyo kung sino man yung author na yon at gumamit kayo ng killbot in order for you to paraphrase that sentence. And so present research problem at the very beginning. So unang-una pa lang ng introduction ninyo, kailangan malaman ng nagbabasa o ni sir o ni ma'am na ito yung problema ninyo. Ito yung gusto ninyong sagutin na problema. Maliwanag ba yun? So provide a context for your research problem. Pag sinabi natin context, ano ba yung issue mo tungkol sa research na to? Sino ba yung target respondent mo? Taga saan ba sila? Ano yung age group nila? Ano yung qualities nila? Okay? Ano yung problema mo sa kanila? Halimbawa, you would like to identify the demographic profile. Ilagay mo doon kung issue mo yung demographic profile nila. Kung problema mo kung ano yung psychological disturbances, ilagay mo doon kung ano yung issue mo sa kanila doon. Okay, so convince readers of the importance of your project. Importante ba? Meron bang contribution yung research project ninyo? Kung wala, try to re-evaluate your research output or your proposal in order for you to gain this importance or significance of the study. Kasi kung wala naman siyang importansya, baka hindi talaga akma yung topic para sa iyo. So try to look for other topics that might suit your interest. Okay? So assume that your readers know nothing whatsoever about your proposed study. So isipin na lang ninyo na walang alam yung magbabasa sa papel ninyo. Kayo yung magkikwento, kayo yung magbibigay sa kanila ng insight tungkol saan yung study ninyo. Of course, you have to communicate that you have an open mind about the outcomes of your study. So dapat tanggapin natin na dapat hindi natin masasagot lahat ng problema sa research ninyo. And of course, you have to put these limitations of the study. So describe your proposed methodology with as much detail and precision as possible. So if you intend to use data that already exists, describe where the data are located and how you plan to obtain them. Of course, describe how will you use the data to address your research problem. Okay, so this is just an evaluation of the problems that you are trying to solve. So you can just visit our presentation right here so you can just see more yung ating presentation. So let's say for example, you have the problem. So the data needed, existing ba ito? Saan mo makukuha at paano mo makukuha ang datos na ito? And how the data will be interpreted. Yun lang yung evaluation natin sa data or datos na dapat nating kunin. Again, ano ang kukunin nating datos? Saan natin makukuha yung datos? Paano makukuha yung datos? At paano natin ma-interpret yung datos natin? Sa pamamagitan ng statistical tools and of course, the research related literature that we have. So that is how we try to evaluate every problem na gusto nating sagutin. Ngayon, gusto nating isulat yung first draft natin. Although nakapagbigay naman na kayo ng first draft, you have to use appendices to present informed consent letters. Ito, importante ito, informed consent. Again, para sa yung informed consent? Sige nga, kung naalala pa ninyo kung para sa yung informed consent. Bakit kailangan magpaalam tayo sa mga respondent natin? Anong pagkakaunawa ninyo? Bakit kailangan tayo magpaalam o magkaroon tayo ng informed consent letter sa inyong mga respondent? Sige, okay lang kahit yung isa nakasagot na. Ano pagkakaintindi nyo? Bakit kailangan natin gawin ito? Bukod sa required, syempre required kayo talaga gumawa nito. Ano yung malalim na dahilan sa bagay na ito? Okay? So next one we have is specific measurement of instrument. Kaya nga pinapipili ko kayo na nakaraan ano yung instrument or tool na gagamitin ninyo kapag kayo ay magre-research na and other detailed materials. So again, in revising your proposal, set the proposal aside for a few days. So wag mo na nun yung i-edit kagad. So magmuni-muni kayo, pag-isipan nyo muna mabuti kung ano yung dapat gawin at ano yung approaches na na-miss ninyo. And then, tsaka nyo balikan yung research proposal o yung na-edit ni Ma'am at Sir. Likely, the advisor or the teacher will give you some hints paano ninyo i-edit yung proposal ninyo. So read a paper copy rather than electronic version of your first draft. So hanggat maaari, kung kung kaya naman ninyong i-edit online o kaya naman yung basahin online, okay lang din naman yun. Pero ang suggestion ng iba, you have to print it para mas makita ninyo kung meron bang parang mali. Ganun yan minsan kapag na-print mo na, saka mo lang marirealize na parang may kulang, parang may mali, parang may nailagay ka na doon ng mga characters na hindi dapat nandoon kapag na-print na. Na-experience nyo rin ba ito? No? Kapag gumagawa kayo ng assignment, nung na-print na, saka mo lang na-realize may mali doon sa content mo. So this is just a opinion or just a suggestion on how you would like to revisit your paper. So carefully scrutinize what you have written, looking for disorganized thoughts, illogical thinking, and inconsistencies in terminology. Ayan, paulit-ulit tayo dito Hindi yung isang salita na ginamit mo doon, especially the factors that you have, must be universally true sa lahat ng paggamit mo nito sa loob ng research. Okay, hindi pwedeng inconsistent yung terminology na ginagamit mo. Halimbawa, ang ginamit mong salita ay extraversion. Okay? Dito sa unang paragraph mo. Tapos ang ibig mong sabihin ng extraversion dito is about the extraversion of Carl Jung. Tapos, pagpunta mo dun sa kabilang chapter, ang pinag-uusapan mo ng extraversion ay kay kay Big Five theory naman, kay Macrae and Costa. So magkaiba yung kanilang ibig sabihin ng extraversion. Kung ibig sabihin mo ng extraversion ay kay Macrae and Costa, stick ka lang doon sa ibig sabihin niya ng extraversion na yun. Huwag kang gagamit ng ibang terminology o ibig sabihin ng extraversion. Kasi magkakagulo yung yung research mo. Kaya dapat consistent ka sa paggamit noon. Ngayon, pag binasa mo yung sentences mo, meron bang connect yung unang sentence mo sa pangalawa? Yung pangalawa sa pangatlo? O kaya naman, yung first paragraph mo, merong connect ba sa pangalawang paragraph mo? Hindi yung random kang kinopya mo yung result ng isang research, tapos kinopya mo yung isang result ng research, pinagsama mo, ngayon, it will provide inconsistency at maguguluhan yung nagbabasa. Okay? So these are just some of the commonly used editing words or marks coming from your teachers, especially kapag handwritten yung pag-check nila. Okay? Again, for revisiting your proposal, look for places where you are not as clear as you might be. Or keep your sentences simple and straightforward. Okay? Kung kaya mo namang i-edit yung sentence mo in a very brief or very concise manner, so try to edit it as much as possible in straightforward characteristics. So choose your words carefully. Okay? Ito yung mga common na pagkakamali sa mga research proposal o sa pagsusulat nila. Yung paggamit ng its, o yung merong apostrophe tapos yung isa pang its, no? O kaya naman yung paggamit ng there at there, pati yung isa pang there, no? So T-H-E-R-E so versus T-H-E-I-R. Ano pagkakaiba ng mga yan? Minsan, ito yung mga sinisita sa internet, no? Kung yung paggamit ng its, yung may apostrophe ba o wala. Tapos yung there. Tapos yung affect versus effect, magkaiba yung dalawang yan. So revising your proposal, make sure that items is bulleted list are parallel in structure. Make sure that there is a one-to-one correspondence between the citations in the text and references in the reference list. Kapag gumamit kayo ng isang reference o ng isang author sa loob ng text ninyo o sa loob ng proposal ninyo, dapat makikita natin yan sa references list ninyo o doon sa bandang hulihan ng inyong research proposal. Okay, hindi yung merong pangalan dito tapos sa reference list wala. Tapos nasa references list wala naman doon sa body ng inyong research proposal. So walang ganoon dapat, ha. So consider the feasibility of your project once again. Para saan ba ninyo ginagawa ito? Meron bang patutunguhan itong study na ito? Meron bang makikinabang ng study na ito? So pag-isipan muna ninyo kung meron bang epekto yung inyong study sa lipunan. So print out your second draft and read your proposal carefully once again. So kung meron lang naman kayong kung meron lang naman kayong resources para makapag-edit, so okay lang naman kahit online ninyong i-edit ang inyong trabaho. So seek the feedback of others and take it seriously when writing subsequent drafts. Okay. So we also have practical application on how to strengthen your proposal. So the common weaknesses related to the research problem. Ano po ba yung mga common mistakes or common weaknesses kapag tayo ay gumagawa ng research problem? So mapapansin niyo rito, meron tayong description of the project is nebulous or malabo yung ating research problem. That the purpose of the research is unclear. Tayo mismo hindi natin alam kung paano sasagutin yun. So dapat maunawaan natin na meron tayong mga tools, meron tayong mga questions na dapat maliwanag sa atin. Paano natin kukunin ang mga problema na yan o paano natin sasagutin ang mga problema na yan. So the problem as presented is not empirically testable. Hindi natin matitest o hindi natin ma-survey sa ating mga respondents. So dapat you will use standardized tests in order for you to solve this problem. So the problem is not framed within an appropriate theoretical or conceptual text. Again, yung mga problema natin sa research or research problems natin, dapat inline din yan doon sa existing theoretical framework natin or conceptual framework as well in order for us to have this sequence of data gathering na gagawin natin eventually. So the problem is unimportant or unlikely to yield new information. So hindi naman importante pero nandoon sa question ninyo. So tanggalin na ninyo yan. So the hypothesis is ill-defined, doubtful, or unsound. So it is based on insufficient evidence or illogical reasoning. Kaya nga importante na magbasa kayo ng related literature para makita ninyo yung background ng research problem ninyo. Okay? Kasi meron tayong mga research problem minsan na wala namang kinalaman doon sa ating study, pero nilalagay natin talaga doon. So huwag natin gagawin yan. So the problem is more complex than investigator realizes. Yan, lagay tayo ng lagay ng mga problema doon. Tapos eventually, tayo yung mismo yung nahihirapan. We try to overthink of the things. No? Ang dami natin gustong isolve sa problema ng research natin. So likely, narrow down lang ninyo kung ano yung specific data na gusto ninyo makuha. So the problem is more complex. No? So the problem is of interest only to a particular localized group. We also have the project is unrelated to the funding agency's purposes. So know the objective as well as the mission vision of the agency that you are trying to work with. So in order for you to achieve the right problems and the right research issues that you are trying to solve. Okay, so we also have the weaknesses in terms of the design. So likely you are not using the right statistical analysis, you are not using the right tool for getting the sample materials o yung mga sample size ninyo. Okay? O kaya naman hindi tama yung inyong methodology. Minsan lumalabag kayo sa ethical standard ninyo. Sinabi, gumamit kayo ng letter para sa informed consent. Hindi kayo gumamit ng informed consent. Basta-basta na lang kayo nagbigay ng inyong research proposal, pati ng inyong survey form. Hindi man lang kayo dumaan sa proseso, okay? So these are some of the weaknesses that we have in terms of the design. So likely your method is vague, malabo. So the proposed methodology violates ethical standards, or the data the investigator wishes to use are either difficult to obtain, mahirap kunin. Yan. Paulit-ulit tayo dito na dapat accessible yung data o yung datos na kunin nyo. So the proposed method, let's say for example, your measurement instruments are not existing or hindi standardized tool, hindi reliable, hindi valid. So hindi kayo gagawa ng sarili ninyong question, bagkus you will use the standardized tools that we have posted sa inyong platform. O kaya naman, kung kayo ay merong nakitang ibang survey form, make sure that it has psychometric properties, especially with the validity, reliability, and its objectivity or standardized procedure ng pag-administer ng test na yan. Okay? So appropriate controls are either lacking or inadequate. So the equipment to be used is outdated or inappropriate. Yung mga research questions natin o yung mga survey questionnaire natin is outdated na. Okay? Maaring ito ay mag-come up ng hindi na valid na mga results kapag kayo ay gumamit ng invalid tools as well. Okay? So make sure that your statistical tool is right or appropriate for the data that you have. Hindi pwedeng gumamit kayo ng Pearson R tapos gusto mong malaman yung difference. Hindi ganun yun. Kapag gusto mo malaman yung relationship, Pearson R yung gagamitin mo. Pero pag gusto mo malaman yung difference, t-test or analysis of variance ang pwede mong gamitin for this data that you have. So potential limitations of the project, even if unavoidable, are not adequately addressed. Okay, so we also have weaknesses among our investigators. So the investigator has insufficient time to devote to the project. So again, you have to consider the timetable that you have or the semester, kung gaano katagal yung semester na meron tayo ngayon. So the investigator appears to be unfamiliar with important literature. Yan, kopya lang kayo ng kopya kung anong makopya ninyo, tapos ilalagay ninyo sa study ninyo. Tapos pag binasa yung proposal ninyo, hindi maintindihan kasi kayo mismo hindi ninyo binasa. So the investigator does not have sufficient training or experience for the proposed research. Okay, so weaknesses related to the resources naman. So the institutional setting is inadequate or unsuitable for the proposed research. So ito yung sinasabi natin na dapat akma yung research proposal ninyo doon sa mga study na binabasa ninyo. So proposed use of equipment, support staff, or other resources is unrealistic. Pagdating naman dito sa related to the quality of writing, so likely you will be minimizing it by using different platforms and technologies that we have para malesen natin yung technicalities pagdating sa pagsusulat ninyo. Okay, so the proposal does not stay focused on the research problem. Paulit-ulit tayo dito na dapat yung inyong approach sa inyong research ay umiikot doon sa problema na gusto ninyong sagutin. So it rambles unpredictably. So the proposal inadequately or incorrectly cites related literature. Mali yung pagkakagamit natin ng mga related literature that we have. O kaya naman, hindi tama yung sources natin. Gumamit kayo ng Wikipedia randomly. Nilagay ninyo wikipedia.org. So mali na kagad yun. So you have to use the right literature or studies existing online or in hard copies para ma-assure natin na relevant yung mga resources natin. So the proposal does not adhere. Okay, the proposal does not adhere to the appropriate style manual. The proposal has grammatical or spelling error. So iwasan natin itong grammatical error or spelling errors na to sa paggamit ng existing technologies that we have. So we also have evaluating an early draft or research proposal. So paano natin ma-evaluate yung ating draft? Again, the statement of the problem is vague or it is so obscured by discussions of other topics that is impossible to find. The methodology is completely describe. An explanation of exactly how the research will be conducted is not specifically delineated. Okay. So the statement of the problem is vague, or it is so obscured by discussions of other topics that it is impossible to find. Yan. So importante makita natin na dapat yung pag-evaluate natin sa ating research proposal, we have to look for some flaws or some problems that might arise eventually kapag tayo ay magpapa-check or kapag tayo ay magpapa-evaluate ng ating proposal. So yan. So the proposal lacks of sharpness, or the proposal is ambiguous. Of course, the format of the proposal negates the guidelines. So importante ito na dapat makita natin yung guideline na ibinigay sa inyo. Kayong gagamit ng ibang guideline, pagpos gamitin ninyo yung format na ibinigay sa inyo. So some cited sources do not appear in the references list. Okay? So importante makita natin yung ating mga references ay dapat akma doon sa list at doon sa nasa loob ng ating proposed program. Okay. So these are some evaluation that we might consider kapag tayo ay working with institution or school or research institution. So the problem does not address the research area outlined by the funding agency. So the proposal is too ambiguous for the grant money available. Okay. So item included in the budget are disallowed by the terms of the grant. So ito pinag-usapan natin na ito. These are considerations that we have kapag tayo ay binigyan ng research grant or a budget for the particular issues or topics or research agenda. So a clear and explicit budget statement outlining program expenditures is lacking, or summary of estimated cost is ambiguous and indefinite. And lastly, we have the section of the proposal explaining the study's importance is not set forth clearly enough for the funding agency to see the relationship of the study to the purpose of which the grant is awarded. Okay. So this is how we discuss the writing the research proposal, and we have been knowledgeable and equipped with how we tend to approach this writing research proposal. Okay, so this concludes our discussion for writing research proposal for research in daily life.